Hey folks, it's your pal Mike Shea from slyflourish.com and twitter.com/slyflourish, here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy DM Prep. In this show, I go through the steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my Sunday D&D game. This session, we are going to be doing Session 0 of Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I have officially completed my Sunday Tomb of Annihilation game, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the beginning. I suppose some people might want to hear how that ended up going, because it was a pretty crazy ride, a pretty crazy adventure overall. I should probably do a show where we just talk about Tomb of Annihilation overall. Maybe we'll do that in the future. Maybe I'll do an off day where I do that. But today I do have to prepare a little bit. I don't know. Session zeros are different. And we'll talk about session zeros and what I do with them and what other people can do. Step Back History is here in chat, and he says, will you do Undermountain 2? I don't know. Right now it is not on the list. Right now I'm going to be focusing primarily on Dragon Heist for my Sunday game, and then finishing Tomb of Annihilation for my Wednesday game, which probably will last another 5 or 6 sessions. And then after that, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I haven't really given Mad Mage a deep read through, and I'm a little apprehensive about taking groups that just spent months in a dungeon and putting them in another dungeon. But I do know that Undermountain is very different. It's not a big funhouse, crazy Acererak dungeon. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what I'm going to do with it. I'm not really sure. So I'll take a few minutes and talk about what happened at the end of Tomb of Annihilation for my Sunday group. So when our session ended, the previous session, Native DM says DMM, Dungeon of the Mad Mage is a grind. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of feeling it out. MSC is here. Hello, everyone. Hello, Mike. Thank you. Hello to you. So when the session ended, they were just getting into the Cradle of the Death God. And I wanted to start a session where they just got into the Cradle of the Death God, and we would just spend the whole session worried about that. And it was a crazy madhouse. I always thought, like, it's nice to run a big encounter like that, because if you're going to run it multiple times, you'll know how to run it. The reality is no game is going to go like my game went. Like, my game went off in a completely crazy direction. So the fight against the Atropol was pretty straightforward. The Atropol, I did use the Madness Cry, and that worked. And I let them have a opportunity to break out of their madness by taking butt tons of psychic damage. I think on the order of 28 psychic damage. It's the equivalent of getting hit with a lightning bolt, If they took 28 psychic damage, they could break out of whatever madness they had. They could kind of recoup their psychic abilities by breaking through the cry of the Atropol, but it was hideously painful. I like that technique a lot. I think that's a pretty good technique. Whenever a player looks like they are just like ready to go to their phone and they're bored, because I've been rolling saving throws on charm, or on fear 3 times and failed off. Maybe it's time to offer them an option, another way to break out of their thing. What option can you give them to break out of things? So I go with easy stuff, which is I'll convert that to damage. And it gives them a choice. Like, 28 damage is a lot of damage. Like, one guy is like, I'm not going to take it. I'll drop if I do that. And I'm like, yeah, then you'll be out of the madness. He's like, I know, but I'll be down. And someone else is like, yeah, but I can heal you. It's like, yeah, but you'll be after my turn, and I'll be taking death saves. And I'll be done. So it's now they have choices, and choices are good. Hello, Mom. Sorry I didn't send you the link. I'm busy. They fought the Atropol. Oh, I got pictures. Let me show some pictures here. So one of my players put together the coolest. Let's see. I'll open a new tab. Put together the coolest Atropol mini ever. You can ignore the dice box there. Somebody had a dice jail and they put their character in the dice jail. But this is what my Cradle of the Death God looked like, which I thought was really cool. And the player, I didn't have anything that looked like an Atropol, because there's nothing in the world looks like an Atropol. So a friend of mine, one of the players, made an Atropol mini. Look at that thing. Isn't that horrifying? There's me. Look at how happy and smug I am. So he made that. That's a 3D printed and painted Atropol mini. And the cool bit is I get to use it twice. Like I'm going to be using it for this game and I'm going to be using it for the other game. So yeah, so they fought the Atropal. The Atropal was nailing him with his crazy tight, his crazy cold touches, and this thing was grabbing people and getting ready to hurl them to lava. So it was lots of, you know, the what's it called? The Deathmonger, the Soulmonger itself had tentacles that were grabbing people, and rather than doing damage, it was grabbing them and lifting them up. And the next round, it was going to start, you know, fondue dipping them into the lava. And so they were always like, we got to destroy that tentacle. And they could attack the tentacles and try to break the tentacles before the person. They had a lot of flight. They had a lot of other ways to get through it. So that worked out really well. So after a lot of stress and a lot of issues, they beat the Atropal. And I foreshadowed a Sararak's arrival. So at a point where they were clearly doing a lot of damage to the Soulmonger and severely damaging the Atropal, I said, you know, I kind of broke them away and said, you know, millions, you know, planes away and millions of miles away, billions of miles away, not even billions, you know, millions of light years away, on a dead planet, a bunch of robed figures are using disintegrate rays to carve out a temple that has been buried in the rock for millions of years. And one figure is standing above the others, slowly moving around this black orb that is just eating everything around it to break the rock away from this glorious temple that they've discovered on this dead world. And then he stops for a second and he turns and he looks off into the cosmos, and then he turns to his lieutenant and says, I have somewhere I've got to be. And the player's like, oh man, a Sarak's coming, right? So meanwhile, the portal in the back here, you see this little portal. Let's see. Yeah. That portal in the back was, it didn't glow or anything, but I said like it's changing colors, like somebody's coming through the portal. And I guess that magic is why D&D has so many dungeons. Which magic? Step Back History says that magic is why they have so many dungeons, but I don't know which magic he's talking about. So, yeah, but the idea that a Sarak's like off on another planet carving an ancient dead temple out of a dead world is, you know, kind of makes my mind happy. Oh yeah, disintegrate spell, right? Yeah, that's why Beholder layers are so cool. Beholder disintegrate rays are how they make their lair. It's kind of it's like having thumbs. So they beat the Atropal. I made them destroy 2 of the 3 spires, and when they destroyed the second one, the Soulmonger fell into the lava and was destroyed. And then the Atropal freaked out and they got a couple of good powerful hits and killed the Atropal, which disintegrated into nothingness. And the Atropal was defeated. And they were all like, yay. And then a Sarak steps through. And they're all like, so half the group is like, we got to fight him, right? So the paladin like charges into him. And a Sarak looks at him. I forget, like, oh yeah, so the Tabaxi rogue Stone started like shit talking him. I forget what he said, but he was like making puns and stuff. And Asarak looks at him and casts Power Word Kill and kills him. So he's like, oh man. So he's dead lying on the ground. And then one of the other characters is a sorcerer, and he is on one of the balconies here throwing lich phylacteries into the lava. And Asarak looks over at him and rolls the Sphere of Annihilation towards him, and it misses him. Because it's like the Sphere of Annihilation's DC is really low. Like it's easy to dodge it. It's like 14 or something. It's, you know, shockingly low, which I guess it like doesn't move super fast, but still, you know, you kind of want it to be like the little metal balls that Magneto moves around. So he dodged it, and then it swung around again because he can move it as like a bonus action. And this time he didn't dodge it, and it disintegrated him. So now we got 2 characters that already immediately got disintegrated. And then I think the Paladin charged him. And he's holding off the Paladin. And in the meantime, he's talking to Ogechi. So Ogechi is the warlock who is like touched by a Sararak. He got the black key in the maze room, and his arm is starting to look like a lich. And a Sararak's like, you insects have no idea what a pain you have caused me. And then he looks over and he sees the tattoo on Ogechi's arm, and it's the tattoo of the Night Serpent. And he realizes, like, this guy's a key to getting into the vault of the Night Serpent. So he's like, but maybe it's not a complete loss. And so Ogechi's kind of talking to him. He's like, well, you know, maybe we can help each other out. And he's like, well, maybe we can. He's like, if I go with you, will my friends be okay? And he's like, your friends? Like, in 1,000 years, you're going to laugh at the fact that you cared about them at all. You know, like, they are nothing. You know, and you and I can go do some stuff. And Ogechi's like, well, that sounds fine. And so Sarak says, but if you care for them, sure. Except for these 2, they're already dead. And then he snaps his fingers, and a succubus lawyer shows up. And she's got little spectacles on, and she's got a big contract, and she unrolls this contract and hands it over to Ogechi. And Ogechi's like, well, my name is rather long, and he's signing it, and everyone's like, he doesn't know how to write his name. And he's like, I do so. And so he's starting to like, Ogetch, oh yeah. And the Sarak's like, I've lived forever, but I'm also impatient. And he starts like, hurling fingers of deaths at other characters. And Ogetchi's like, oh. So then the bard, our bard, what's his name? Tharmond. Tharmond casts Charm Monster on the succubus. And the succubus has resistance. It's it has to roll at disadvantage or roll at advantage, and fails the check. And so now the succubus is charmed by the bard, and he whispers to her, like, sign a Sarak's name to the contract. And so she kind of looks a little confused and kind of looks at him, and and a Sarak's busy like chasing characters around with fingers of death, and Ogechi stops signing it and rolls the contract, hands it to the succubus, and she just kind of lightly with her finger like signs something on the contract and then closes it up and hands it to a Sarak. Says, here you go. And a Sarak grabs the contract and says, all right, we're done. And Ogechi says, I've just got a couple things I need to clean up here, but then I'll be right there. 1,000 years of service. I get it. Yep. And a Sarak's like, all right. And so a Sarak takes off, and they're like, we're done. Oh, the succubus disappears. And he's like, we're done. What? I never signed it. I signed it Ogetcharak. Because he signed Ogetch, and then a Sarak signed the rest. So it's Ogetcharak is what the contract is signed as. And so a Sarak goes back to his dig, and the party goes to the gate, and they step out. And for the first time in months, they have fresh air. They don't even know how long they were in the tomb, but they have fresh air. And they're like, oh, this is great. And Ogechi's like, I'm free. Like, I might go back and serve him anyway, but now it's my choice. And, right now I have some other things I want to do. So I said, okay, like 1 year passes, right? What happens to your characters in 1 year? This is my favorite thing to do at an end of a campaign. I highly recommend it. What happens 1 year after the end of a campaign? And sometimes the best stories that happen after the campaign's over. And it was the case in this case too. So I asked them all, and I said, like, what happens? And so, I'm trying to do them all in order, but I don't remember the exact order. Oh, so Punchy was the Kenku who had ended up being churned into plant stuff cursed by Zugtamoy, and also was connected to Gilly, the Atropol, down in level 5. And he met the Atropol in Waterdeep and connected the Atropol, not the Atropol? Aboleth, sorry. The Abolithic Sovereignty. He connected the Abolithic Sovereignty, which are like these, they're essentially fish people that can think back in time forever. He connected them to the fungal network of Zugtamoy. So now you have this infinite history of the Atropol, of the Aboliths, connected to this massive vine network of Zugtamoy that exists like underneath all of Faerun. It's like the most powerful interconnected organism in the world. And he shook hands. I said, at one point you see a tentacle come out and a vine come out, and they both shake hands together. So that was his story. We didn't get the story for the sorcerer, but they did resurrect Warren, the dead druid. They had, they could afford all the true resurrections they wanted. And Warren transformed himself into a T-Rex and became... the Vine network can only send messages under 6 seconds. I hope Twitter doesn't kill that. He became the next King of Feathers. So now he's hunting through the jungle, destroying the undead. And he's it's a gnome druid that now is almost permanently transforming himself into a Tyrannosaurus. That's what he loves being, is a big ass Tyrannosaurus. And he rides around and he doesn't ride around. He runs around and kills undead. So he's very happy. The Bard started a hit play in Waterdeep called The Tomb of Annihilation. And the Paladin went to the edge of the Onaruk Desert and built a temple to Tyr. I think it was Tyr. Torm? Maybe Torm. Where his father had died. And was using the temple to try to help as many people as he could before he died, and his soul went to Gloomfinger the Aranese. So he knew he was doomed. His soul is doomed, but with his life, he's going to try to do as much good as he can. And I think, what was the last? Oh, so Smoke, the Tabaxi rogue, also he took over a previous cat house, Tabaxi rogue, and turned it into a opera house that has an underground smuggling ring underneath. That was, he has his own little, opera house / thieves guild that he's building. And this is in Baldur's Gate. He's sort of building a new place in Baldur's Gate. And I think, am I missing anybody? I'm probably missing somebody. Oh, Ogechi. Aha. So Ogechi meets up with Fenthaza. Fenthaza had this vision that that Ogechi and Fenthaza would go to the gate to the temple, to the realm of the Night Serpent, and open the door, which could be, which could destroy everything. And he says, it's time for that prophecy. And she says, great. And they go hand in hand to the door of the Night Serpent. And he stands there. And then she's looking up at the vast door and then feels his dagger in her back. And he assassinates her and kills her. And he's like, your vision was wrong. And then he leaves. So he never actually opened up the door. And I was like, whoa, that's badass. And then, I don't know. And then he might go off and sort of explore his strange. I think he's definitely going to become a lich. Step Back History says, what about Huit Zeline? Unfortunately, the player left months ago. So I didn't really have an end for Huit Zeline. And nobody really brought him up. So he's probably out there. The one thing they also didn't bring up is they have this big shipping network on the western coast of Chult. And they own it. And it's huge. And they're making lots of money. So nobody brought that up. So I guess they kind of just let that go. Maybe it's all their retirement. Now they're like, hedge fund managers for it or something. So it was a wonderful ending to the campaign. I really enjoyed it. I cut it off kind of quick. Like I didn't do the whole last thing, but it's like they had their big conclusion. They had their big thing. They were very happy and I was happy to run it. So I do feel like, there's like 5 or 6 rooms at the end that I skipped. They didn't really grab me. And I don't know if I'm going to run them for the other group too. I'm going to have to see. The other group is going to be totally different because they don't have anything like Ogechi. So if a Serac shows up, I don't know what they're going to do. It's going to be bedlam. I think I'll probably give them the crazy, they know that they're possessed by the spirit gods and they will have some extra power and they actually have some ability to fight him. I think that's the only good way to go. I think setting up sort of a Neo versus Mr. Smith, Agent Smith scene in Matrix 2 where, Neo can fight forever and Agent Smith can make as many Agent Smiths as you want and Neo can just fly away whenever he wants. It's sort of like the same thing. Like they'll be in a stalemate. Like, they're not going to beat a Sararak, but meanwhile, the Sararak can't quite kill them all because they keep getting resurrected by the stupid spirit gods. So I'm going to probably do something like that. We'll see. But that's a month away or so. I'll ponder that. So that was Tomb of Annihilation. And now, this session, we are going to have our session 0 of Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So I sent them a note about the adventure. I said it's going to be a level 1 to 5 adventure. We are not planning on running these characters beyond level 5. This is something I recommend, even though you think like, after 5 is great. And the big reason, and by the way, this show is going to be full of spoilers for Dragon Heist. So if you're playing in Dragon Heist, you don't want to be spoiled, I'm sorry. Go watch Critical Role. Go watch something else because I'm going to spoil the hell out of this adventure. And so one of the problems with this one, and it happened to my other group, is it's very likely that they are going to walk away with a whole lot of money, and I think it's kind of lame to come up with some rigged up story where they don't get the money. Like, at what point do you say like there's 500,000 missing gold coins and you don't get any? That sucks. So I'm not doing it that way. And if they get the money, they get the money. So I want to leave that option open, which means they're not really normal characters after the end of the campaign. So, but we'll see. Like, and the players are already like, I kind of like my character already. I'm like, you haven't even made it yet. Like, I know it's cool. So they're kind of thinking, okay, maybe we'll take it and we'll go do something else with it. And I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know. But plan on just this being a straightforward campaign. I don't think this one bleeds easily into other campaigns. And Evil John says, if they get the money, they can't really do Mad Mage. Yeah. And I don't know that they want to. Like, it just seems like different characters. Like, you have characters going around on a crazy investigation across Waterdeep, and then suddenly they all want to grab the rope and go down into the dungeon below. I don't know. So I'm not so sure. I don't know how that's going to work out. Reagan Earl asks, what season? So I ran this adventure previously when it was in playtest, and we ran it with we ran it with Manshun as the bad guy. Manshun has been a villain in my campaign since I was 14 years old, so I was very excited to have Manshun come back. But I don't want to run Manshun again, nor do I love the Xanathar and I love Jarlaxle as side villains. Like, these are other, I think I'm going to remove Manshun from the list, and really there's going to be sort of 3 factions going on here. And the 3 factions are going to be the Xanathar, Brigandarth, and the Castlelanters. But the season is going to be summer. I'm going to run the Castellanter season. I also think it's funny that it's like freezing cold outside and we're going to be running a summer adventure. That kind of amuses me. It's going to be, this is a short adventure. It's only 4 or 5 levels, so it's probably only going to be 8 to 10 sessions. I have no idea what I'm going to run after that. We'll have to see. I don't know if I'm going to run the home campaign, or I have no idea. Maybe, hopefully, something will be out by then, but we'll see. I could also run the Eberron. There's an Eberron campaign that's now out on DM's Guild, and I have that, and I could run that. So we'll see. So let's talk a little bit about session zeros. Normally on this show, I go through the 8 steps for preparing for your game. This is the Lazy Dungeon Master's checklist. Review the characters, create a strong start, outline potential scenes, define secrets and clues, develop fantastic locations, outline important NPCs, choose relevant monsters, and select magic item rewards. I don't do this for session zeros. For session 0, I have a whole chapter of the book. You can find a link to this book, by the way, down below on Twitch or on YouTube. So session 0, where is this chapter on session 0? Running session 0. So there's building a lazy campaign, which is something I should do. And maybe we'll do a little bit about that today. So building a lazy campaign, there are many different ways to run a campaign. And, you can see some of my quotes. The adventure is about the here and now. Made a lot of mistakes. I overprepared. I made huge campaign worlds, not realizing players wouldn't see 1/100th. I'm also running a published adventure, so I don't really have to worry about building a campaign exactly. But the concept of the spiral campaign is, essentially we don't build campaign worlds. I don't build campaign worlds. I recommend starting with where the characters are. My friend Enrique, Newbie DM, talks about this. We had a show where we talked about this on the DM's Deep Dive. And his whole thing was like, no one cares what's beyond the mountains. Like, no one cares about your crazy 1,000-year history or 10,000-year history. No one cares about the prophet up on the mountain. They care about what's going on in the town when they're starting. And I think that that's really true no matter what you're running. If you're running a 20-level campaign, if you're running a huge campaign in your own world, you really want to, everyone has the drive to go build a giant world, and they love doing that. And, fine. We like doing it. But don't pretend that that's game prep, because I'm being a little preachy here, so pardon me. Game prep is helping your game, and that's what's the next session is the one that matters. Not 5 sessions from now, not 25 sessions from now. I'm not worried about what's going to happen in the summer. I'm worried about what's going to happen today, right? In an hour and a half, I'm going to be running a game, and I want to make sure that game is fun. So the spiral campaign idea is you can have a campaign world and have lots of interesting things, but focus on what is around the characters and what matters to them, right? Use that. They are just like they are the number 1 step in our prep. They're the number 1 step here too. Who are the characters and what do they do? So that, the campaign spiral still uses the Lazy Dungeon Master checklist. But you can have a campaign hook, right? And so if we, let's see, we'll drop over. We're going to create a new file. Let me make this file, and then we'll switch over to it. So it is make our session 0 notes. So we're going to flip back and forth here. So what is the campaign hook? And the campaign hook is, pretty simple. I can't spell worth a damn. Cover the dragons of Waterdeep, right? That's it. In fact, I'll give a secret. Waterdeep Dragon Heist. A lot of people have this complaint that calling it a heist it's not a heist, it's an exploration. And in fact, the heist took place a while ago. I think the Dragons of Waterdeep is a far better campaign name because it's cool because it's got the term dragons in it, right? But it makes it sound like there are dragons in Waterdeep, and they're just not dragons, they're coins, right? A gold dragon is a gold coin in Waterdeep, a single gold coin. So the recover the dragons of Waterdeep means go find the missing gold, right? And that's great. That's like a total, think about your good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Here's a good model, right? Go watch the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is about three people that are all trying to recover lost gold. Really, one of the best, probably the best Western ever done. So it's good there. So that's our model. I don't know that the model's actually, whoops. So now let's go back and look again. So we've got our campaign hook, right? Real simple. And I love this, 4-word, 5-word, recover the dragons of Waterdeep. What is that? 5 words? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So fewer words, the better, right? Like it's clear what you're going to do. And that's the goal, right? And now you got that in mind and everything surrounds that. So it's kill Orcus or kill the wizard or kill the vampire lord and end her reign of terror. You want these to be straight. Then the 6 truths of the world, right? Now I cut down on this. So I cheated a little bit. I sent a note out for the session 0 to my group, but I did create some truths of this campaign. And there's probably a couple of other ones. So let me show you the truths. Sorry. So let's switch back over. So I have 3 because it's a short campaign. I don't need 6, and it's not a whole new world. It's Waterdeep. So there's probably, a few others, but these to me are the 3 big ones. What are the 3 facts? And some of these are in the book and some of these I'm making up because I like to tie the campaigns together. We can talk more about that. It's been 5 years since the War of the Dragon Queen. Numerous villages, towns, and cities lost tremendous amounts of coin when raided by the Cult of the Dragon, and much of it was never recovered. All right, so that's a truth that happened. 5 years, you don't go 1,000 years. Many villages, towns, and cities across the Sword Coast lost a lot of money, and it never came back. Due to this negligence and preferential treatment for Neverwinter, Lord Degault Neverember lost his seat as the Open Lord of Waterdeep to Lariel Silverhand, the current Open Lord of Waterdeep, right? That's important in the campaign, and it's a big political thing. This is a relatively political adventure too, so that's an important standpoint. And then third, crime is on the rise. Numerous criminal factions in Waterdeep appear more active, going so far as to fight one another in the streets. In response, the High Wizard of Waterdeep, Vaja Blackstaff, has activated her independent enforcers, Force Grey and the Grey Hands. Right, so now we have this new faction that's out there. So those are the 3. There are some other, truths to Waterdeep. And I'll probably talk about them. One thing is I printed out copies of the Code Legal, so that I'm going to hand out to the players and be like, you're in a city now, right? Crime is punished. You are not, this isn't Chult, and you can't just do whatever you want and get away with it because everything's going to be buried under the muck in Chult. And here, you are not the most powerful people in the city. There are many, Vajra Blackstaff and Lariel Silverhand, and all of the groups that they command are very tough hombres. So, something I got to make clear in my session 0 is that, crime, crime is punished is an important part of this. Important part of this thing. So let's see. I've been ignoring the chat, so let me go back to the chat. Blondie, yeah. Evil John says Blondie. That's the name of the nickname for Clint Eastwood's character. People love Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Evil John says world building is fun. It is fun. That doesn't mean it's useful. World building isn't game prep. Right? World building is fun, and we all love doing world building, and we all kind of imagine. But I think we think it's important, and it's not. And my opinion, right? Everybody's got opinions, and a lot of people get angry at me. Good friends of mine get very angry at me when I talk like this, so I apologize. But that's what I believe, right? What I believe is, and what I've experienced is that what players care about is what's happening right now. not the history. You can do the history, and that's fine. And if you have a deep history, that's great. Don't pretend like it matters. It doesn't matter. It matters little to them, mostly. I'm oversimplifying. Although I want to be a player in Dragon Heist, we are still running Storm King's Thunder, and I think that will do for another year. So we're shortly entering Chapter 4, where they meet Harshnag and go to the temple, so I can't really prevent a spoiler by then, but I'll probably forget. That's all right. I'm not going to get into too many spoilers, and honestly, I'm changing a lot, and the DM can change a lot in this adventure. How much prep did you do until now, except for reading the adventure 1, 2? So a cheat is I ran the whole thing before. So my prep for this one is greater than it's been for any of the previous adventures because I've run the whole thing. So I kind of know how it works. The other one is it's not a huge adventure. Like it's not, it isn't a huge book. It is a huge book, but the adventure part of it is relatively small. So you can kind of pick up the whole thing pretty quickly. Says the villain that I chose is Winter. No, I originally chose Winter, Manchun, but not for this one. This one I'm choosing Summer because the Castellanters sound cool. And reading about the Castellanters and making sure I understand their thing is going to be more important. So with Crime on the Rise, leniency is no longer an option for the City Watch. That's true. World building is like how the cast of Gone with the Wind wore 19th century underwear. You don't see it, but the actors knew. Did they really wear 19th century underwear? They're probably uncomfortable the whole time. And you're gonna say, man, if they wore 20th century underwear, would that movie have been much different? Yeah, so, I have my truths, right? And I did send these out previously to the players, so they know these truths when we go into our session 0 today. Let's go back to the book and take a look. Defining the fronts. So I have not done this yet, right? So who are the main fronts? What is their goal? And what are they trying to accomplish? I'm not going to do too much of this right now. But I will define the fronts at least. So let's do fronts. And we're going to start with 3. So we have the Castellanters. We're going to have 3 fronts. We have the Castellanters. We have Brigand. I have no idea if I'm spelling that right. Let's go to Google and see how to spell Brigandiarth. Hey, look at that. No, that's not right. Whatever. Good enough. And the Xanathar. Now, they all have sort of different goals. They all want the gold, but the interesting question is why? Let's see. I can certainly spell Jarlaxle. There we go. Let me grab that and replace that. Thank you, Internet. So for each of these, we want a goal and a what else? We want a goal and we want 3. Let's go back to the book. Doop. A goal and then 3 grim portents. So these are ideas stolen from the RPG Dungeon World and Apocalypse World. I slimmed them down because some of that I had a little trouble with. All right, so each of these fronts has a goal and 3 grim portents. Like, how are they getting there, right? And what, the grim portents are things that the characters will see that show that they're going forward. And I got a little bit of time to kind of go through this, and maybe we might come back to this in a minute. But the Castellanters are the primary, and then the second one, the Brigandiarth and the Xanathar, are fun fronts to work with. Now, this is only a 5-level adventure, so you're not going to really do a lot with these grim portents, right? This is what you would do for a longer campaign, where you really want these big villains to kind of come in and out. These are a lot of things that could happen. I'm not showing it, so let me show. Yeah, so there's these are sort of the fronts, right? And the fronts are the Castellanters, Brigandiarth, and Xanathar. And for each one, we're going to have a goal. What do they want, right? And the Castellanters, we know, again, spoilers, so be careful. The Castellanters need they need 500,000 gold to buy back the souls of their 2 children. They also 1,000 souls, I think it was. 100 souls, right? Or like 99 souls, I think, if I recall from the book. So, you know, what are the grim portents that get them there? The final one is I know where the end is. I don't know how to spell Asmodeus. Am I spelling that right? Yeah. All right. Wouldn't want to misspell the Lord of Hell. So what's like the first thing? It's kind of a cheat, but I'll show you one, which is so these are examples, right? The Castellanters, we know that they need 500,000 gold to buy back the souls of 2 children. They also need to feed 99 souls to Asmodeus. One of the grim portents is that devils have come to Waterdeep, and that's something I'm actually going to reveal today, I think, on the assumption we run the beginning of the adventure. I need to read up on Brigand Darth, right? And the Xanathar... he needs the gold to show that he's the crime lord of Waterdeep. So you can see how this kind of goes. And again, I don't think I'm going to run through all this right now because we only have about 15 minutes left and I'd like to talk a little bit more. But this is how we get our heads around who the main factions are and what happens during the game. You know, these are all things that are occurring. So now we think of it like a pool table, right? You've got the players who are their own pool ball. And then you have each of these factions, which are 3 others, and then you're throwing them in different directions, and they're colliding with one another, and they're banging into the bumpers, and they're zipping all over the place. We don't know where they're going to go, but these are the pool balls, and we're putting them on the table, and we know what direction they're going to head, and we kick it, and then we see where that happens while we're running the game. That's kind of the metaphor I like to keep in mind while I'm doing this. So let's go back to here. So yeah, and so that's it, right? So we come up with a campaign hook, which we have. We come up with the 6 truths. We chose 3, and we define the fronts. Who are the main players and what's going on with them? So this would be a good thing for me to spend a little bit more time on, and I probably will. Like who, you know, but I don't need to do that right now because session 0 is really a whole different thing. So I might even destroy all of what you just saw based on what we kind of find out at the session today. So let's talk about running a session 0, right? And so before we get too deep, you know, I'm reading right from the book, right? Before we get too deep in the campaign, it helps to run an initial session to say what the hell is going on in this campaign we're running. So the first one is we describe the world. In this case, it's easy. The world is really Waterdeep, right? We're talking about Waterdeep. So one of the bits of homework that I did is I sent out, so my group all has access to my D&D Beyond info because they're part of the campaign. So I sent them the link to the Waterdeep Enchiridion. Volo's insured into Waterdeep, and some of them read it, some of them probably didn't, but those that did now know a lot more about Waterdeep. And it's really, so I will say a bit of homework on this of this, whether you're a player or a DM. When whether you're a player or a DM, I think it's really helpful to read the Waterdeep Enchiridion at the end of the book, right? It's 30 or 40 pages or something like that. You can actually buy, if you don't own the book, you can buy it from D&D Beyond or from DM's Guild for like $5, I think. Or if you have the adventure in D&D Beyond, you can read it there too. I think that reading that as a player and a DM gets your head into Waterdeep. And I read it recently, but I think I might read it again. Right, I think I might at least skim read it again because it's worth just kind of absorbing Waterdeep, and that's the world. So when we talk about describing the world, man, nothing beats having a campaign book you can hand to a player and say, hey, read this, and you'll know. And they might not. Many of them will be like, oh, whatever. And they'll just learn through osmosis. They'll learn while playing, and that's fine too. But as a DM, it's important. Manage the expectations. What are we going to do? It's core +1 is the rule I'm putting in place, just because I want to see how that works. I think I'm going to get a lot of backlash, but we'll find out. I mean, it's only 1 to 5. We are only playing 1 to 5. Do not expect that we will be playing these characters beyond 5. Build your characters around this adventure, right? Build characters that are, and I'll show you what I sent, right? So managing the expectations, I sent out some stuff, and I'll show that in a second. Yeah, and then the big part is: are there any themes that any of the players are uncomfortable with? Are there any things that we don't want to do? Is sacrificial murder a bad vibe? Well, maybe we'll switch to one of the other villains. Do you really not want to touch on issues of slavery? Do we not want what are the concerns, right? And does anybody have any? The group I run with, they tend not to have any concerns, and we just run. So, and a lot of this stuff, I don't really, I don't have violence towards children. I don't have sexual undertones. I don't put in vivid descriptions of torture in my games anyway, because I don't like them. So generally I don't worry too much about this. And the group, I have brought it up, but you always want to have this open session of like, is there any themes that people don't really want to get into? So, and then the other one is, so now how do we tie the characters together? And there's a few ways to do it. One is to tie 2 characters to a thing, that you're both siblings of somebody, both saved by somebody, served with somebody, protected by somebody. And that way each character has a connection to someone, usually to 2 other people that they both have a history with, and that's a good way. Another way is to tie everybody to a single faction, which we did in Tomb of Annihilation. It worked really well. Everybody worked for the Flaming Fist. Right? They got to choose which one of the factions they wanted to work for, but they chose Flaming Fist, and that meant they were all Flaming Fist, and that worked out really nicely. And then the other one is make sure to build a character, and I send this out, and I'll show you what I sent in a minute. Make sure to describe the kind of character that's going to have the most fun in this adventure, and then stress to the players that those are the kinds of characters they want to build. You get a lot of like, oh, I want to be the aristocrat who really doesn't want to be on an adventure and doesn't like working with people. And you're like, well, what the hell are you doing in Chult, right? Like, you're not going to have fun here. Now, on the other hand, there are times, it doesn't have to be why does your character want to do it, but maybe they have to do it. Now, that can be okay. If like my character has to explore Chult because he was exiled from his noble house, and he wants to kind of bring back some artifact that shows his merit that will get him to take over the house. Great. Now we have a reason why there's a noble aristocrat that's in Chult, right? But that theme, that reason for them to do this kind of adventure is really important. And then at the next, run a quick scene. And Dragon Heist has a perfect quick scene. And the quick scene is weird stuff comes out of the well in what's it called? The bar. I can't believe I can't remember the name of the bar. Somebody help me. What's the name of the bar? So yawning portal. So something terrible comes out of the yawning portal. And in my case, I have an idea of what's going to come out. If we want to talk about like that strong start, it's going to be a bunch of sturges and a demon or a devil. Instead of a troll, I want to have a devil come out and say like the border between hell and Waterdeep is thinning, right? And it's because of this stuff that the Castlanters are doing. I think that's kind of a cool starting theme to go with. It's different than the rest of the adventure. People are like, whoa. And there's a cool devil from Mordenkainen's. It's in Mordenkainen. So let's go to monsters. Is it Amerigon? Yeah, this guy, right? So they're like foot soldiers for... that's a terrible picture. Why is that picture? So this is called a Maragon. It's like a devil legionnaire kind of thing. And I think that like it was called, but sort of ended up in the well, and cultists are trying to draw it out of the well because its job is to be a bodyguard for the Castellanters, right? And it comes out of the well, and the party has to fight that thing instead of a troll. I think like trolls are pretty high. I don't think CR wise I'm going. Yeah, CR 5. So this is the other one, CR 4. So it's not crazy out of power, right? And I think it could be cool. So, a devil soldier comes crawling out of the well. Will be a fun thing to do. And that ties into the whole the devil worshipping thing that's going on inside of here. If they want to go past level 5, they get a bar at some point. They can run with a real conceptual Cheers inspired campaign. Yeah, sure, it's possible. Isn't it actually level 1 to 4 and you hit 5 at the end? That is true, and that's probably how it'll work out. We'll see. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I said it's 1 to 5, not including 5. We'll see. I think my other group got to 5, and because I'm not really running this AL style, so I can kind of run it how I want. So let me show you what I sent. I only got about 10 minutes left, but I think we're okay. I put this in an article that I'm going to be posting, so you guys get a sneak preview of the article I'm going to be posting. These are my campaign notes, right? This is good. So setting expectation, so this is an article about Waterdeep Dragon Heist. It's called a heist, but it's not really a heist. So this is, it's an adventure about investigation, right? And I reinforce this both in dialogue and an email to the players saying this is not a heist. Don't build a bunch of rogues breaking into places because you're not really breaking into many places. This is about investigation. So one guy said, great, I'm going to play an investigator. I'm like, there you go. Play an investigator. Urban investigation. I should, it doesn't matter. These are not notes I'm keeping. Find clues, and then so the following points. Waterdeep Heist is an adventure of investigation, clues, and mystery. Characters should be a solid motivation to investigate mysteries with their companions in the city of Waterdeep, right? It's an urban adventure in which you are not likely to leave the city or leave it for very long. Combat will occur, but not nearly as often as exploring and role-playing. Characters should have something to do in role-playing scenes. Characters should have something to do in exploration and investigation scenes. Key skills in this adventure are deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, persuasion, and stealth, right? You're telling them, like, focus on these things and you'll have more fun, right? Then we had the 3 facts, which you saw before, been 5 years. And then, telling them that the expectation is going to end. And then I tried to create some character connections that we might use. And those are that, like, 2 people have a sibling who is a member of the Grey Hands. Somebody broke away from a small-time thieves guild as children. Somebody fled from Luskan after being hunted by a Luskan ship captain. A couple people fled from their adopted family, secretly planned to sacrifice us to Asmodeus. So-and-so are members of the town guard. So-and-so have a childhood friend said not to be in this interim. Once met a famous author, so-and-so and I, famous. And so you see that X and I, right? X and I means that it's a connection between you and another player and an event, right? Like you and another character both have an uncle who works for the City of the Dead, right? Interesting. So, 2 people when they were children both got lost in the sewers of Waterdeep, right? So these are just a few bonds, and they're really to kind of get people's minds thinking about the kinds of connections they could have, right? It doesn't have to be these things. And as a DM, this is the importance of a session 0 is 2 players might be saying, like, what if your character and mine both were veterans of a war? And then I say, what if you guys were veterans of the War of the Dragon Queen? And like you served at the Well of Dragons far to the southeast, and it was, you went way far away and nobody even really knows that the war happened, but you guys saw what happened there, and you saw things that other people wouldn't believe, right? And so then and the Well of Dragons and the War of the Tiamat matters because of the gold, right? And like you guys, maybe you're both from a poor town, that where they lost the money, right? That would be a good one in here. So as a DM who has an understanding for the adventure and the adventure's themes, working with the players while they're thinking about their character descriptions, you can start to insert parts of the story in there all together. So it's really a big improv session, right? And it's a good improv session. There's really interesting things. And another thing that I mentioned is don't already have a faction. Like, don't be a Harper or don't be a member of whatever, the Zinterim, because those connections are going to happen on their own anyway, right? You're not yet connected to a faction. You might have a relationship with a faction, but faction stuff happens in chapter 2 in this adventure. So the idea is it doesn't happen to begin with. So this is the article, but these are basically the notes that I sent to my players. Many of these, I did not send like the character connections. I'm going to bring these with me. I should probably print that out. Print. Can I print file? Print. There's no print. I can't believe I don't have a print. Can't print from Sublime. I never tried to print before, and now I don't know how. Whatever. So that's the kind of stuff that I prepped for the session 0, and the actual event will be kind of talking about the characters and why they're together. I want to know about the characters and why they're together. And the hardest part, by far, and every time I've done it, is getting the player to think about another character other than their own. They run hard with backstory for their guy or gal, and they don't connect the guy or gal to that other guy or gal. So you want to say, like, who else were you with when this happened? Oh, maybe the two of us were. But the idea is, like, you're a group of friends, right, or compatriots or whatever, and you're sitting at a table in the yawning portal. Like, that's not to start you off in a bar, but you're in a bar. Right? Now it's the most famous bar, and a devil just crawled out of the pit, but it's still a bar. So that's fine. It's a trope, but there it is. So what else? I think let's take just another gander over at Return and see if there's anything there we missed. I think that was pretty much it for the... use the first session to help build characters relevant to the campaign and steer the campaign towards the backgrounds and motivations of the characters. Describe the general campaign and the 6 truths you put together as part of your campaign planning. Yep. Use session 0 to manage expectations. Develop ties between characters and connect the characters to the world. Consider tying all the characters to a single faction. I love that one. Like, I can't really do it here, right? I mean, I guess you could sort of have everybody already with the gray hands or something like that, but not at level 1. So I wish I could do this, but the reality is that, this works better in a different campaign than this. Guide the characters towards cooperative adventure by asking them to give their characters a clear reason to adventure with the rest of the group. Run a quick and heavily improvised session with some NPC interactions, some exploration, some combat, right? That's the quick adventure. Quick adventure, and this is going to be Yawning Portal. And that's easy. Like, it's an easy thing to run. So what else? One thing I have been doing is I have made some handouts for this, and I do think handouts are a thing that are worth the time and effort. I think that's a chapter in here too when I talk about other things. Let's go back to the beginning of Return. You're getting a nice, good look at Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master today. Other high value preparation activity. Handouts. Number 1. Handouts, maps, artwork, right? Music. And handouts, right? There's great handouts for this. I'll tell you, if I was running this for 2 groups instead of just 1, I would buy that platinum edition of the Beetle and Grimm pack, because it is filled with props. It is a whole giant, like 50-pound box full of props. It's expensive. It's $500, I think, or $450. But if you're running, and I don't know. The problem with Dragon Heist, I mean, that's great. I would, if I was running for 2 groups, I would still do it. I wish it was a longer campaign. Like, if they had that a year and a half ago for Tomb of Annihilation, I'd have bought that, because, man, I get use out of it every day, and it'd be worth the money, because you get 6 people for that many hours. It's worth it. But in the meantime, I'm printing out stuff. So these are like the Code Legal. I've got that. There's let's see. Adventures, Compendium Adventures. What are you, Dragon Heist? They have the people. Yawning Portal Friendly Faces, right? So this isn't bad. I'll save this image off to my desktop here. And I'll print that. It's not going to look great in black and white. But whatever. So, it's got some nice handouts in it, right? It's got the code legal. So this is another one. So one thing I did is I took the big map. I don't know if you guys, can you hear my printer? Sorry, it's a little loud. I took the big Waterdeep map and I printed it out on 11 by 17 because I don't want to bring the big poster map to the shop. Although I'm considering, and I may do it, it's a little expensive, but getting a laminated poster of Waterdeep would be pretty cool. And it'd be the kind of thing that I might keep forever. Like I have a Sword Coast one and I might keep that forever. So I might do that. Yeah, it didn't come out great, but it's a little handout. Here's some people, right? My printer sucks. I have a terrible printer. So they have this one, which is a unfilled out version of Trollskull Manor, which doesn't come up until the next chapter. But I made an 11 by 17 version of this so that they can really write stuff in. We can use it. And I'm thinking about battle maps. I'm thinking that I might go through the trouble of getting a bunch of the battle maps printed out, not to run as like gridded combat, but just to kind of show what a place looks like. Like this is a small enough adventure. This is a small enough adventure that you can make, here's the, you can print these out. I mean, I could print them out on 8.5 by 11 too, but it'd be kind of nice. 11 by 17, they're nice big maps and you can lay them out and everyone can see it. And they're like $1, if you got a local Kinko's or I guess Walgreens, I think will also, I should try Walgreens, CVS. I think that they have other places that'll print stuff like this in big format. And, a big stack of these would be nice. They don't have a map pack I don't think they have a map pack for Dragon Heist, but they do for Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So Dyson Logos is the guy that did all these. He's awesome. And he did all the maps in Dragon Heist, and I think many of them, so he did all these. Some talk about whether black and white is better than color. I like color, but I don't print it. I guess there's a different, I guess because I can print in black and white at Kinko's, and that's even cheaper. Not that it's honestly cost me more energy to go pick them up than it does to cost to print them, especially when using them. But it'd be nice to have like a nice 11 by 17 map pack. So I might do that. Maybe I'll even do that today. Is I can, send them all to Kinko's, and then I might even try to do it before I leave, and then I can pick them up this afternoon. It'd be pretty cool to have all the maps for Dungeon of the Mad Mage, or sorry, for Waterdeep Dragon Heist. And then what I'd kind of like to do, because I didn't do it for Chult. I kind of cheaped out for Chult. Let's see, is they have the this big map. This map is huge. Look at the detail on this, right? This is Waterdeep. And it's got all the streets and it's got all this stuff on it. And the resolution on it is huge. So having a giant poster map of this thing would be pretty awesome. Trim it down, trim the edges off this thing and then print it out on a big laminated poster so you can draw on it with a white erase marker. Would be pretty awesome. So I might do that. But I think it's like $50. It's not cheap. Costs as much of the adventure. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how necessary that is. Because I did print a color 11 by 17 one for $2. I like that it has the names of the... it has the names of the statues. The walking statues. They're all on here. Not that you can read them because, the resolution's so big. So that is it. I am going to be, oops, I can close that. Right. I'm going to be running my game here in about 25 minutes. No, I'm leaving in about 25 minutes and, I'm going to be running the game in about an hour and it's going to be a good time. It's, it's always a little nerve wracking, you're like, oh, I'm going to go there and I don't really have anything prepped, but the point is not to have anything prepped. Listen. We listen to what the players are talking about and guide them. Listen and guide, right? And you want to listen to their background, but you also want to guide them to other people's backgrounds. Other people should matter as much to them right? That's the hard part. Find you a print shop that will give you a deal. Online posters might be cheaper too. I've tried a bunch of different things, and it's hard, and shipping ends up costing a ton. Evil John says CVS, Walgreens, local UPS type stores, they all print now. Color is nice, but if you print a lot of these, simple is cheaper. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to thank everybody on Twitch chat for a fine conversation. I will let you know next week how everything went. Oh, I will not be having a show next week. I am at Winter Fantasy. So I will be playing D&D instead of running D&D. I'll probably run a little bit of D&D, but I'm definitely going to be playing a bunch of D&D with a bunch of awesome people. Myself, DM David, James Intercasso, Teo Sapadia. We're all playing at the same table. It's going to be, I pity the DM because we're going to not be kind. I mean, we're not going to be mean to the DM, but we're going to be laughing and ribbing each other the whole time. So it's going to be a really cool time. So I will not have a show next week, but I will have a show the week after, which will be our first real session of Dragon Heist. So thank you all very much, and I hope you guys have a great couple of weeks. Go play some D&D.